We're going to start the meeting in a couple minutes. So if anybody wants to sign, this is the last time to sign up at the podium. And I'm also asking for Alderman Tollerman and Alderman Davis to get to their seats, please. Thank you. Before we start the meeting, there are a couple quick public service announcements. For an emergency, please note the exits on either side of the chambers and proceed down the stairs. Bathrooms are located out the door. Women's room is to my right, men's room is to my left. We do typically allow 30 minutes for public speaking. I do anticipate a lot more speakers. If you have not done so already, please sign up at the podium, and then can we pick that up, please? Because we will have a great deal of speakers tonight, we will be keeping all speakers to 3 minutes or less. The clerk will be holding a sheet that warns you of the 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. So we ask that you respect this. We are here tonight to listen to the voices of the public as well as to run government proceedings. In order to best serve us all, we must not have any distractions. When a speaker is addressing the council, no disruptions are permitted. This includes talking over, yelling, or clapping. Their freedom of speech allows for uninterrupted time. When this body proceeds with the business of the day, we also need to have no disruptions. As per open meeting law, section 103, interruption of a speaker or government proceeding will not be tolerated. After one warning, anyone who interrupts a speaker or the proceedings of today's shall be removed. This meeting is now called to order at 7:34 p.m. on August 3rd, 2021. May you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. May I please have roll call?
Alderman Ventura Morel.
Here.
Alderman Coop.
Here.
Alderman Scott Childress.
Excused.
Alderman Worthington. Alderman Tollerman.
Here.
Alderman Davis.
Here.
Alderman O'Reilly.
Here.
Alderman Shabbat.
Here.
Alderman Hirsch. Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Can I have a motion to dispense with the minutes of the previous meeting and approve same?
Motion.
Motion by Steve Shabbat, second by Tony Davis. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. Can I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the general bills?
Motion.
Motion by Doug Coop, second by Patrick O'Reilly. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. We're now entering into the public speaking portion of the meeting. When you come up, please state your name and address for the record before you address the council. Please direct your comments to the chair, as council members cannot engage in debate during this time. Please remember you need to keep your time to under 3 minutes. We will have it up here so you can see. And there shall be no distractions when a speaker is addressing the council. Thank you. Can I have the first speaker, please?
Jean Jacobs.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, members of the Common Council. Good evening to my community. My name is Jean Jacobs. I live at 139 Wall Street, Kingston, New York. I am a lifelong resident, born and raised here, my children, and my entire family. I have been a community activist in the rank and file for 40 years. I am here this evening in support of the armored vehicle and the cameras that were needed in our community yesterday. Our community has faced a tremendous violent time, and we are critically involved right now in coming up with solutions to attest to that and go forward together. Alderman, you represent the community. You represent your ward. You are the voice of the people in your ward. It is not an I subject. It is a we. We are in this together. Not I don't like or want the armored vehicle. Therefore, first and foremost, it is the mayor's responsibility to maintain safety in the city of Kingston, which is outlined in our charter. I would like to respectfully remind the mayor and the common council, you work for the people. You are paid by the people, and you are elected by the people. So our voice matters. My platform tonight, I like to have a platform because the platform that I chose was that, are we prepared? Are we totally in this community prepared to go forward together? Without the essential tools for our law enforcement, how
30
can they go
seconds.
forward? So I urge all of you here in this room tonight to understand a few incidents. I'll be brief. My son, really, my son Dan was in the Pentagon on 9/11, and they were not prepared.
Thank you, Jean. We
So-
do have to stop. That was 3 minutes.
I thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you. We need to have silence to get the next speaker. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sarah Wang.
Sarah's not here. Next speaker, please.
Val Dwyer.
Good evening. I am reading on behalf of Val Dwyer, who cannot be here this evening. My name is Jenna Benincasa, and my address is 288 Wall Street, Kingston. The following letter was signed by 305 members of our community, which was emailed to all of you over the weekend. Dear members of the Common Council, in the city of Kingston in the past 2 years, there have been 6 people killed by gunfire, 12 other people hit by non-fatal gunfire, 46 cases of confirmed shots fired. These statistics are unprecedented in our city, and I am deeply concerned for the safety of our community and the safety of our police officers who are trying to protect this community. I am also concerned with the bullying, the scare tactics, and the false information that is hindering our city's ability to address these issues in the way that they need to be addressed and in the time frame that they need to be addressed in. Please approve the replacement of our armored vehicle that will be funded with a Homeland Security grant at no cost to the City of Kingston's taxpayers. This should not even be a question. This vehicle does not have any weapons. It is not a military vehicle. Do not believe this distorted scare tactic. This vehicle acts simply as a shield of protection and means of transport to allow our police officers to safely access an active shooting situation. This is opposed to an unacceptable situation recently on Van Buren Street where our local police officers were forced to protect themselves by hiding behind vehicles at a scene where shots were being fired in broad daylight. Furthermore, we read about mass shootings every day in our country, at schools, at malls, at parties. They are sadly happening everywhere that we cannot ignore that fact. This vehicle would allow police officers to safely access victims who need medical attention but are in dangerous location. This vehicle can hold 12 to 15 people and be used to remove these victims from what's known as a hotspot. A hotspot is an active shooter area where paramedics will not enter because it's too dangerous. This vehicle could safely bring the victims to what's considered a warm spot where paramedics would be awaiting to administer medical attention. Please note, the paramedics will not and cannot enter a hotspot to assist victims. They wait on the outskirts in warm spots. I hope you understand that if the Common Council denies the proper equipment to our police officers,
30
the
seconds.
consequences would be severe and traumatic to our community. It should also be noted that this vehicle was utilized during the aftermath of Hurricane Irene to travel homes and accessed by that normal vehicles could not access. I'm going to skip a little bit. Please also listen to the needs of our chief and his department so they can effectively return our city to the city that
10
we all love.
seconds.
The one where we walk around and drive around without the fear of a stray bullet. And the city where we show our police officers how much we appreciate them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Suzanne Timbrook.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Timbrook, and I'm here with my husband, Brian, and 3 of our 6 children this evening. And I'm going to try to get through this without crying. I want to tell you about what happened to one of my sons last August. We live on Hoffman Street at 24 Hoffman Street, a mere block from here. Last August, he was sitting outside enjoying a beer on a summer night outside of our home, the home where all of our children have been brought home from the hospital and raised in, the home that we've been in for over 26 years. While sitting outside doing nothing wrong other than texting his girlfriend and enjoying a beer, 2 young people came down the street. They pulled out a gun on him. They then robbed him. They pistol whipped him in the head. And then they locked him in the trunk of his own car, a block from here. The place where my kids used to run around and play all night long with all of the neighbors' kids because it was safe. If you are a mother or a father, I want you to imagine your baby locked in the trunk of a car, fearing for his life. He escaped the trunk of the car because he knew that there was a safety latch. I didn't know that. Now I do, should I ever find myself locked in the trunk of a car. He ran in the house to wake us up, to tell us what had happened. He was bleeding from the head with a huge knot on his head, screaming and crying because he said, I thought they were gonna take me away and kill me and bury me, and you would have never known where I was. There were no cameras on my street. The police came by and wanted to know who did this and what happened. If there had been cameras on the street, they could have found out. If my son hadn't escaped the car, the cameras would have let us know where he was had he been taken away somewhere and killed, or if he had died in the trunk of the car by his wounds. What have we done now? Of course, we've gone and gotten ourselves some cameras, which we didn't have before because we didn't know that our safe neighborhood was no longer safe. Kingston is not safe right now. My children are not safe right now. Your children are not safe right now. I teach at Kingston High School, and there are kids that have been attacked on their way to school. All I need you to do if you're a mom or a dad is imagine
30
for
seconds.
1 second your baby fearing for their life in the trunk of a car, not knowing that they were going to get out alive or not. That is traumatic. So I support the cameras, I support the safe vehicle, and I do support our Kingston police officers who have been nothing but
seconds.
wonderful to my children for their entire lives and all the children of this community.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Brian Timbrook,
Say that again, please.
Steve Peruso,
Good evening. My name is Stephen Peruso, a lifelong resident of our great city of Kingston. I still feel that way. But I am very concerned for this community, our community. I'm concerned when I hear that people are unable to or refuse to learn the difference between a multifunctional emergency response vehicle and a tank. I'm concerned when these same people don't seem to think or refuse to accept the fact that our chief of police is capable of making a well-informed decision to help that very community. I believe, given his experience in the field, that he's quite capable. The group and groups railing against this acquisition speaks of police shootings from this vehicle and uses terms such as an assault vehicle and military force, instilling fear of harm coming from the hands of this terrifying, monstrous vehicle. This is nothing more than bullying, using scare tactics and false information. These accusations are far from the truth. In fact, it's quite the opposite, as the multiple uses for this and other vehicles like it enable all emergency responders the ability and access to dire situations that they may encounter. These include hostage situations, domestic violence, mass shootings, or even natural disasters. As a construction equipment operator for Ulster County DPW, I watched firsthand as a witness to the devastation brought to our area by Hurricane Irene and the rescue vehicle used to access areas normal emergency vehicles could not. They checked on trapped families, getting medical and food supplies to them, and even extracted families from imminent danger of flooding before their houses were washed down the Esopus Creek. Very harrowing experience. Kingston now has an opportunity to partner up with the town of Ulster to acquire such a unit and at no initial out-of-pocket cost. And no, of course, it's not an assault vehicle as described by the uninformed, but a truly multi-dimensional means to put our first responders and all emergency rescuers in a position to help all
30
people
seconds.
in various situations and in the safest, most advantageous position to do their job. I support law enforcement and all first responders. Thank you for your service.
Next speaker, please.
Mike Oliveri,
My name is Michael Oliveri, and I'm here today to speak not only as an alderman candidate for Ward 7, but also as a concerned citizen. I'm asking the Common Council to approve the request of replacing the current 40-plus-year-old rescue vehicle. Having knocked on most doors throughout my ward, the top issue concerning my constituents is safety. You have heard and you will hear personal testaments to the benefits of having such a vehicle available. Although I have never been in an environment needing an ERV, I know if one is present, it is a serious situation. They are not being used to pull people over for tinted windows. In doing research, I came across the following things. Speaking with a few officers, they told me the primary use of this vehicle is to safely get people in and out of dangerous situations. During the shooting outside National Stadium, not 2-3 weeks ago, an ERV was used to safely get people out of the area. Imagine this happening at Deet Stadium or at Kingston High School. Wouldn't you want something there that could help? Finally, over the last 6 years, this Common Council has approved the acquisition of 5 vehicles. The difference between those and this one, thicker bulletproof walls, and since it is a grant, no cost to the taxpayers of Kingston. As Ms. Alonso stated in the last meeting, quote, "A tank is going to terrorize the neighborhood and create a strong sense of intimidation that is already felt by everyone. I too would be terrorized by a tank rolling down a road. Luckily, this is not a tank. It is an emergency response vehicle. We should all be unafraid knowing that. With the increase in crimes and reports of gunfire throughout Kingston, the need is abundantly clear. Please remember, just because some voices are the loudest and most disruptive does not mean they speak for all of us. As the sentiment of all gun owners goes, I would rather have one and never use it than need it and never have it. Ask any officer on the force or the majority of concerned citizens in this room. This vehicle is one we all pray is never needed, but one we are glad to have if required. Thank you.
Speaker, please. Next speaker.
David McNamara.
Good evening, Common Council. Good evening, President. My name is David McNamara. I'm the Executive Director of the Samadhi Recovery Community Outreach Center. It's come to our attention that there have been some complaints about our center, and I just wanted to let the Common Council know about what it is that our center does. You all have, I think, these that we've given out. We have a crisis right now in this country around addiction and untreated mental illness. But especially in our city, we've had 183 fatal overdoses in the past year. We've had 7 in the last 2 weeks, which I've gone to 3 funerals in the last 2 weeks. Now, in order, the people who are dying of these overdoses are people who actively use drugs. These are the people that we serve. We also serve people who are in recovery, but we also serve people who are actively using drugs. Sure. Is that better? Okay. So in that sense, we are an outreach center. So we're an open door from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And what we do is anyone who is suffering from addiction, their families, and anyone who is in danger, because of addiction or because of untreated mental illness, we basically will find emergency housing for this person. We will find them treatment. We found treatment for 517 individuals in the past year. We also train people in Narcan, which is a substance that reverses overdoses. We've reversed 373 overdoses in the past year. This is hard work, and it's not always what everybody wants to see. Our center happens to be in the center of a neighborhood, and I understand that some of the people that we serve can make people nervous and uncomfortable. We're at 122 Clinton Avenue. We rent from the Clinton Avenue Church, so we're Clinton and Liberty. So in that regard, we have decided to move the center, to move the outreach center to another location that will not be so centrally located inside of a neighborhood, because the situation is not going away. It's something that we need to address every day, and it's really hard for us to. We can't really pick and choose. When somebody is in crisis, they're in crisis, and we have to be there for them when they come in.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And so I just want to say that we want to work together with the community and respect the community's wishes, but also take care of the people who are suffering and dying in our community. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Next speaker, please.
Jolie Dunham.
Good evening. I'm Jolie Dunham. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself, my sister Jill, who lives in the city of Kingston, my mom in the city of Kingston, and two of my children who work in the city of Kingston, although I'm a town of Ulster resident. Plain and simple, in 2 years, there have been 6 people killed by gunfire in my hometown, including an 11-year-old child who was killed in her own home, which broke all of our hearts, every one of you. Our hearts were broken. 12 others have been hurt by gunfire in Kingston, and 46 cases of confirmed shots fired. Keep in mind, a shot fired is an intent to kill. At your finance committee meeting, which I watched on YouTube, this armored Bearcat vehicle was painted by a group as being some kind of a military tank that would roam up and down our city streets as some kind of threat to law-abiding citizens. I'm going to read you the definition of a tank. A tank is an armored fighting vehicle intended as a primary offensive weapon in frontline ground combat. Tank designs are a balance of heavy firepower, strong armor, and a good battlefield mobility provided by tracks and a powerful engine. Usually their main armament is mounted in a turret. Please, I'm begging you to use your common sense. This vehicle has no weapons, and past history shows its effectiveness during rescue events such as Hurricane Irene. Keep in mind, we also had a shooting at our mall 10 years ago, but it can happen again. School violence, it can happen anywhere at any time. The bottom line is there's no downside to accepting this grant. There is no downside. The council should be doing everything humanly possible to support our police department. The majority of the city's residents are retirees, local taxpayers, and people who work hard and want law and order. You are making a huge mistake if you allow a small but very loud minority group of people to intimidate you into thinking otherwise. Please accept the grant. Please fund the cameras. Thank you.
Need silence? We need to move a little bit faster, so thank you. Next speaker, please.
Dr. Kathy Nolan.
Can the speakers just really, in the musician world, we call it eat the mic. Really speak into the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it ice cream cone or burrito? There's some guidance on using a microphone. Can I be heard to the back of the room? Thanks. So I'm Kathy Nolan. I'm here tonight in my role as president of the board of directors of Samadhi Recovery Center. And I just want to reiterate what our executive director brought to you. We're an organization that is addressing a lot of the problems that are often brought to you as problems without solutions. And we don't have immediate solutions, but we are moving in the direction of solving problems for both individuals and neighborhoods and cities and Ulster County. The way that we deal with drug use and violence is actually to bring people into settings where they get treatment and can enter recovery and can learn nonviolent approaches. So that's what our organization does. During the pandemic, we did not hold a lot of the outreach activities that we had been having prior to the epidemic. We would have events and invite the community in order to get people to know us and to know our volunteers, because a lot of our volunteers who are in recovery and some in very stable long-term recovery are around our building, and I think have given people a sense that there are people in the community that aren't known, but these are people who are actually helping to solve the problem. We couldn't do that during the pandemic, hold big meetings, but we hope to be opening our doors to the communities in ways that problems that are coming up, we can address them as they do that. And we certainly will make ourselves available to any of you who have questions or see things that we should be doing to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Don Mapes.
Good evening. My name is Donald Mapes. I'm here as a longtime Kingston resident. I'm here also as a pastor in this community for 30 years, and I'm also here as one of the police commissioners, okay? I deal with the facts. The fact of it is not an assault vehicle. The fact of it is that Kingston Police has never shot and killed anybody black. Fact. Fact. Let's deal with the facts, okay? I'm here for a reason, because I'm tired of the foolishness. I'm tired of the nonsense. Groups talking about Black Lives Matter. I've never seen them by the Boys Club. I've never seen them in Ward 4. I've lived there all my life. I lived on Van Buren Street, bought my first house on Clinton Avenue, and I live on Cedar Street. 2 decades of coaching football, 2 decades of ministering in the Ulster County Jail. I've invested into this city that I love and care for. We need this. Listen, you take insurance, why? If something happens, you're covered. When you build buildings, you put sprinklers and fire extinguishers in. Why? Just in case something happens. We have never had a school shooting, and we've never had a hostage situation where this is used. As a police commissioner, I'm the one that hired police, chastise the police, discipline the police. They need protection to go in there to do things that as citizens and everybody else can't do. They need to be protected, okay? And I would never sign up on anything that was going to be paraded around the city, intimidated anybody or anything. I go into countries like South Africa, Jamaica, and see what happens first-handedly when the military take over. I would never sign up for that. Let us get grips. Don't bring the national narrative of George Floyd and all that stuff. Yes, there are tragedies. This is Kingston, New York, Ulster County. Yes, we do have problems, but guess what? We deal with them.
Please sit down. We need silence. Next. We need silence to keep going. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Tiffany Christiana.
I don't know that we need another speaker after that. I'm obviously not Tiffany Christiana, but I was asked to read her letter, and I really feel foolish following that up. I've known Donnie all my life, and I couldn't have put it any better, man. That was great. So assume I am Tiffany Christiana, and I am a resident of the city of Kingston, and I'm writing today to voice my reasoning why I think you, the Common Council, should vote in favor of an armored vehicle I feel the city desperately needs. I have come to realize that there are only a few moments in our lives that have a profound effect. On February 13th, 2012, I was working as an EMT for Mobile One Life Support when the call came in. There was an active shooter in the Hudson Valley Mall, and we were immediately dispatched to the scene. As a fairly new mother at the time, sounds weird saying that, it was safe to say I was shaking in my shoes for what I was about to experience. We arrived to the unknown, and we were told we needed to go to the mall with the SWAT team after they cleared small sections of the mall and deemed that area safe to look for any injured victims. The images of a battleground, shattered glass, shoppers' belongings just left on the floor where they stood when the shootings began, empty baby strollers, which you could tell mothers just took their children and ran. Bullet casings all over the floor. Stories from my friends who said they had just jumped into strangers' cars while running from the mall to get to safety. And finally, one young man who was shot bleeding and waited for way too long for someone to come and save him. And are all images that will be forever tattooed in my brain. We eventually got the young military veteran who was shot to the helicopter waiting outside to get him to a hospital. all while not knowing if the shooter was hiding in the mall somewhere, ready to continue his onslaught on my coworkers or me. Here I was, a young mother, not knowing if I'd ever see my child or family again. A young mother who went to work that morning thinking I would see the occasional car accident or elderly person not feeling well, was not prepared for what had happened and what I saw and what I had experienced. As I sat hours later at the New York State Trooper Barracks, waiting to give my statement, my uniform pants still blood soaked in a young man's blood that got shot, I thought to myself, oh my God, what just happened? And began to process the day while finally breaking down and crying. That young man waited as crucial minutes passed by, bleeding on the floor, waiting and waiting for help. It always
30
feels,
seconds.
it always feels like we didn't get to the injured fast enough. And it is emotionally unbearable for all those involved, despite their efforts. So I ask, what would happen if there was an active shooter in the middle of the street or at a school? How do our officers get close enough,
10
fast
seconds.
enough to get to our loved ones? I'm not going to waste any more of your time. You get her message also. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jim Shaughnessy.
Can everyone hear me? Thank you. Madam President, distinguished Common Council members, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Jim Shaughnessy and I reside at 11 Delta Place. I am expressing my individual opinion this evening. 2 weeks ago, I was stopped at Washington Avenue and Lucas Avenue, northbound. A large black SUV or truck turned onto Washington Avenue. It was a personal vehicle. It was sort of like this. I don't have time to show it to everybody. This is not a tank. It will go places that no other vehicle in the city could probably go. This is on the streets of the city of Kingston. I'm sure that this cost over $100,000. Automobile manufacturers make a lot of money on these types of vehicles. It's not a tank, it doesn't have a turret, it doesn't have a cannon, it doesn't have a machine gun, it doesn't have a track. I understand the Common Council Finance Committee failed to approve a request from the Kingston Police Department for a $100,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to purchase a Lenco Bearcat armored rescue vehicle for the joint city of Kingston and town of Ulster SWAT team. This vehicle can be used in situations that are too inaccessible or dangerous for normal police vehicles and emergency medical vehicles. It'll replace a vehicle that the city has owned since 2003, but has been mechanically inoperable for 3 years. Town of Ulster Supervisor James Quigley has said the Town of Ulster Police Department will end its cooperative relationship with the city of Kingston if Common Council does not approve this purchase. Some of the protesters at that meeting decried the militarization of the police department and said Kingston doesn't need a tank on city streets. Like the vehicle I saw on Washington Avenue that morning, this vehicle is not a tank. Please think about rescue situations where this vehicle might help save lives. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Deb Brown. I have listened to everybody, but I'll make mine a little bit short. I'm going to explain a personal incident that I had. Another use for this vehicle is for rescues in time of natural disasters, floods, fires, earthquakes, and other natural disasters. I can attest to their capabilities as a former American Red Cross federal disaster relief worker. I was stationed in the Midwest for one of the biggest floods in the Midwest. 3 rivers overran their banks, levees broke, flooding 3 states, and this went on for months. Some communities and neighborhoods were cut off due to flowing waters and marshy ground, making it difficult for a regular 4-wheel drive truck to rescue them. And in my case, I was to deliver food and meds to the victims as they were being evacuated. The National Guard was called in and they brought their decommissioned, which means denuded, Humvees, which is probably the precursor to the rescue vehicles we have now. No guns, no ammo, just a communication console which worked the same way as the vehicle in question. I volunteered to go. I was kind of gutsy back then, but hey, I'll give it a try. This Humvee went places I could not imagine as I sat there and watched the water level rise to the top of the window. We were almost underwater. Kind of white knuckled it. It was amazing how that vehicle came out on the other side. We got our victims transported to higher ground after several trips back and forth. In Kingston, we live by rivers, lakes, and streams. We have seen areas flooded right here in the city of Kingston. The last 2 hurricanes had an impact on the Rondout region with flooding, and there is now a lot more people living in that area who might need a rescue where a 4-wheel truck cannot go. I also want to mention one real quick. Do you all remember the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida? There was a big party going on. 39 people were killed right inside the building. 11 more died at the hospital. The SWAT team was called in. They were being repulsed by the heavily armed shooter. What they end up having to do was to go around to the back and ram the back of the building, put a big hole in it, in the restroom area where everybody was holed up for safety and shelter. The victims were then able to escape, sheltered by the truck as they went through the large opening in the wall. So imagine that saved a lot of lives that day. And I bet they were glad that the local
30
agency had
seconds.
one on staff. Another one real quick was the Paradise Fire in California. Firefighters got trapped. They had to bury themselves in the ground to get rescued. Helicopters couldn't come in. The planes had to drop water. And one of these vehicles made their way up to save them. I imagine it was quite a hot
10
ride
seconds.
on the way back. But anyway, so I'm for this, and I think the city needs to do this. Everything is about be preventive, and this would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Amanda Sissenstein.
Hi, my name is Amanda Sissenstein. I live on Henry Street in the 4th Ward. So Chief Tinty wants to paint the armored vehicle like an ice cream truck. So apparently we're trying to make children afraid of ice cream trucks. Cool. There's no feasible, realistic circumstance that justifies an armored vehicle, I've heard, to rescue children. The KPD traveling, is the KPD traveling to like a war-torn country to rescue these children? It is simply a shiny new toy to intimidate the community. So an armored vehicle, I keep hearing it being called an emergency rescue vehicle. Ambulances and fire trucks are emergency rescue vehicles, not tanks, not armored vehicles. A tank would not prevent any of these shootings. A tank would not prevent a mass shooting. Access to housing, healthcare, mental health care, education, jobs, substance abuse centers like Samadhi provide real safety. Fund Samadhi, not the tank. How about we get bigger and better ambulances to go to these big, horrible emergencies that you want the tank for? Because tanks aren't ambulances. I doubt they'll be equipped with the first aid and emergency health and whatever is in ambulances. I'm not an expert on ambulances. However, let's get more of those and not the tank. So in conclusion, maybe you guys want the tank because you seem to be afraid of signs. Vote no. Please vote no against the armored vehicle.
Next speaker, please.
Bravin Ranga.
Can you all hear me? All right, well, thank you so much for your time. My name is Bravin Runga, and I'm here to represent Nobody Leaves Mid-Hudson. We're a grassroots organization with members right here in the city of Kingston. Before I begin, I've been listening to the debate tonight, and I just want to express my personal empathy for everyone who spoke today. The families affected by crime, the police officers who put themselves in danger, and social justice activists such as myself all deserve to be heard, and we can respectfully disagree, but I refuse to question the decency or the patriotism of those on the other side. That being said, I'm here today to speak out against the purchase or use of the armored vehicle by the Kingston Police Department. We live in incredibly perilous times. Folks are at risk of eviction. People have died or lost loved ones due to the pandemic. And right now, this city and the larger country continues to reckon with racial differences. Now more than ever, people need a police department that they can trust. And the purchase of this vehicle fundamentally betrays that trust. When communities that have been historically oppressed, such as racial minorities and those that are economically underprivileged, see this armored vehicle rolling down their streets, what do you think how they're going to react? They will respond with more mistrust, less engagement, and the cycle of division and mistrust will only continue. While I'm sure this vehicle is being purchased for emergency situations, I can definitely imagine it being used to put down protests and activists speaking their minds. I pray for the day that members of this community and the Kingston Police Department can come together in understanding and common purpose, but seeing that vehicle roll down the streets is not the way to go about doing that. Thank you all for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Jeannie Edwards.
My name is Jeannie Edwards. I live at 64 Liberty Street, Kingston, New York. I would like to open up with a huge thank you for all the work that has been done this past year with the pandemic. And I'm talking to the Alderman people. You all work together to keep this city moving. I meant this from my heart, so please accept it. I appreciate each and every one of you for that. Communication was fabulously successful between the government and the people of this city during the pandemic. Talk about communication being successful. In other areas, it has not been. It has been hard and having uncomfortable, difficult conversations about the conflict in our neighborhood with the director of Samadhi, David. The effects of unnecessary communication are obvious by where we are now. The conversation gets ignored or gets aggressive or escalates. The comments that are often offensive shows the lack of understanding that is needed in our community. Our main concern is protection for all, the children of our community and the people that are reaching out for help. Our community, Liberty Street, Center Street, Clinton Avenue, were never asked about this program. In our residential neighborhood, our neighborhood was never given a plan on how this program was going to be executed. We were never told about the details and the situations that may or may not occur. We were not asked, but now we're asked to solve the problems and give solutions. As taxpayers, renters, we have talked with David many, many times and gave him some solutions. Not one has been executed. We have had meetings with the pastor, with our alderperson, and with David, and also with our mayor as families stand here today to no avail. The neighbors of Clinton Avenue Church and Samadhi did our due diligence in a positive way as far as reaching out to them. This is an unpleasant situation that has to be changed. We do not want to hurt people that are already hurting. The disease of addiction is just
30
that,
seconds.
disease. Mental illness is a health condition involving changes of emotion, thinking, and behaviors. Both cause distress in areas. We in the neighborhood stand now how we are in touch with everyone, that mental illness touches everyone's lives along with addiction.
10 seconds.
I am a survivor, 35 years clean, and I come clean saying that, and it came through a program.
Thank you. Time is up.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Robert Caserta.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Caserta. I'm property owner on Liberty Street over the past.
Can you talk into the mic a little bit more, please?
Sorry?
Thank you. Just
Okay.
talk into the mic a little more.
Sure. I'm a property owner on Liberty Street over the past 20 years. I'm also a recovering addict, more than 30 years in recovery. And I worked for New York State Department of Corrections, Substance Abuse Treatment, and supervised 50 correctional facilities for substance abuse treatment over a period of 20 years. So I'm rather astute when it pertains to substance abuse treatment. In fact, we even, at my property, we opened up a recovery center at one of the properties there that didn't work out so good. The neighbors complained and we immediately shut it down. I'm here to complain about what's happening at Samadhi. Number one, what I don't understand is how could you call yourself a recovery center? No one's ever licensed them. You have to be licensed by New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Treatment. There's a license required. If you're licensed by them, you would be required to have security on the grounds. These people are operating illegally. They have no right to be doing substance abuse treatment. And it's extremely disturbing the neighbors and the children of our community. I just sum it up right here, because when we were waiting, I spoke to one of my tenants, the child is 9 years old. And I asked her, how's your summer going? She says, well, it's not too good. But that's properties number 73 Liberty. It's right behind the church. She can no longer play in her backyard because of the disturbances that are going on at the church there. People having sex in the backyard, people shooting drugs in the backyard, people pissing all day long in the backyard. It's a constant problem day in and day out. If you take time and look at the police reports, it's amazing that you just haven't stepped up and shut the place down yet. I just don't even understand how could it be so many months have gone by and nobody's done anything about an illegal so-called recovery center. I'm all for recovery. I would be in there helping out, but this place it just runs any old way it wants. We don't even know who attends there. Are there a screen? Do we know? Are they sex offenders? Are they violent offenders? Are they parolees? Are they on probation?
30 seconds.
Did they just get released from prison? Who are these people? No one could answer that question. Can you answer it? Do you know who's coming in our community? We have children we're concerned with. We want answers to these things and nobody cares. That's a real problem, the way I see it, for a
10
place
seconds.
that's illegal. We're all next.
Thank you.
Don't even leave. Don't even leave.
Next speaker, please.
Naisha Navarretto.
Good evening. My name is Nesa Navarrete, and I live at 70 Liberty Street, Kingston, New York. On behalf of my family and I've decided to come up here and speak on the experiences living on Liberty and having Samadhi right next to us. I believe no child would have to watch their father get hit by an addict with a bottle to their head, or have to see drug needles or any type of sexual conduct on the street that they grew up in. I am all for recovery, and I appreciate that there are people that want help and that they look for help, but there is no type I believe that there should be a different place and more security perhaps for recovery. And overall, I see that there is a lot of ways.
We may need new batteries, so if you'd bear with us for a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could
Thank
continue.
you. I'm done.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Carla Briggs.
I hope you can hear me. Am I speaking loud enough? My name is Carla Bridges. I go to Clinton Avenue United Methodist Church, and I'm also a member of the community. I actually sent one of my tenants to Samadhi, so I had very high hopes. I also believe that communities should be responsible in helping the drug impaired, any impaired. I have a lot of problems that I need help with. I want to say, nobody is looking at the details. I don't think anybody has gone inside Samadhi unannounced. Frankly speaking, they do a poor job. If there was a better group, we would not be so upset. They have no control of the community. They have no sense of the havoc they are preparing. If I want to help children and I have a daycare center that is either overcrowded or unprepared, I am doing a disservice to the children, even if I love kids. Samadhi is not properly prepared for the job. Let's get somebody else to do the job better.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Francisco Santiago.
Yes, good evening. Like it's been mentioned, we having a problem. I live at 73 Liberty, and seems like they really don't have a control of the place. Like my concern is more like there is right on a corner, the kids wait for the bus to be picked up for school, and they get dropped off from the school also. And every day there is people there, that you don't know, and they're doing what they're doing, the smoking. It's just a fear for our kids. It's just, it doesn't feel safe. We don't know any of the people who they're standing there all the time. And I don't think that's right. I mean, the people who they're running the place, they don't seem to be affected because they don't live there. They just come, show up, open the door, and then they go away. But we have these people all the time. And like he mentioned, they're always doing something. It's just not safe, doesn't feel safe. I can't just go to work and let's say my kid is gonna be dropped off safely off the bus and no one is gonna do anything to him. I'm always worried about something, I can't, it just doesn't feel safe. I think that's all I can say for now.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Kevin Masters. Kevin Masters.
Karen.
Hello, hi, my name is Karen Masters, and I'm actually from Saugerties, New York, 1026 Blue Mountain Road, Saugerties. I've just grabbed this because officially Samadhi is called Samadhi Mindfulness-Based Recovery Community Outreach Center. So they're not claiming whatever license. I'm just questioning some of the things I'm heard, okay? I'm just a person. I go there as a client. Okay, I'm also, again, I'm just gonna make a statement and other people can figure out whether this is right or wrong. I am under the impression that there was a lot of people we might label undesirable in that area already, that Samadhi becoming an outreach center in that area has not drawn the people to that area. They might be congregating, they might be, I don't know, but I'm just saying, I'm not necessarily on board with things I'm hearing here, okay? I don't come to these type of things so often. Okay, so I'm gonna start where I started. I qualify for Samadhi programs in the category of process addiction, not a substance abuse problem. And I was born in a good area of Brooklyn Heights, a nice historic district. I went to private school, summer camps. My background and upbringing, basically to be a good citizen, theoretically. Whole family went to church. I went to church. My parents went to church. Everybody went to church. But behind the scenes, my dad was a bad alcoholic. He'd come home drunk late at night after the bars were closing. There were bad arguments, 2 o'clock in the morning, disruptions, unpeaceful occurrences, to say the least. Behind the scenes, scarred family and a lot of trauma for me and my sister, who's 9 years older than me. Domestic violence to my sister, my father hitting her. He didn't hit me. I don't know, I was the favorite. So I guess I grew up subconsciously in fear of like, well, when is it my turn? My dad broke her arm one time because he needed the sink and she was using it. So my mom separated from him to protect both of us. He died when I was 11 and a half. My mom, I have a point to this. My mom died after being sick with cancer for 3 years when I was 25. So I'm kind of without a lot of family members. Okay, I don't know, that's number 3, where's number 4? Okay, I have college degree with a lot of special certificates, a Bachelor of Science, specializations in area of medicine, biology, biochemistry, and immunology. Just to say, you know, I'm not an uneducated person, but I have
30 seconds.
problems mentally that would be caused a process addiction. So anyway, clients I've seen at Samadhi are, they need a hand up, not a hand out. It helps them to reintegrate into society. And I feel that the CSW therapies I've had there during my time at Samadhi, counseling for mental health, are free. And by
10
people who really
seconds.
know how to help me better than many CSWs that have been highly paid to help me during my life. And people I've seen at Samadhi are giving up their
Thank you, time
vices.
is up.
Thank you.
Scott Denny.
We've already gone past our allotted 30 minutes by twice as much. So if we'll continue doing the 3 minutes, but if you could do it in less, it would be appreciated. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Scott Denny. No.
Hi, I'm Scott Denny. I live at 291 Hasbrook Avenue in Kingston. And I have to tell you, I didn't sign up to speak, but as long as you invited me, I'm here. I was just having a little chat with Chief Tinty. This vehicle is needed. And like the other gentleman and lady said, this is not a tank. This is not, if I'm not mistaken, we already have some type of vehicle like this. It's just being replaced. This vehicle is needed. These gentlemen and these ladies, these police officers go into some very dangerous areas. It's unfortunate they're here, but they need the protection and the means to get people extracted from serious crime situations and also national disaster type things, hurricanes, so forth. I really don't understand why we keep referring to it as a tank, why others continue that. It is clearly not a tank, it's a rescue vehicle. People need to get educated before they come to these meetings and open their mouths. I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker, please.
Helen Cano.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Helen Cano. I'm a Kingston resident. I'm a graduate of Family Treatment Drug Court, and I'm in recovery. I'm here today to give you all a snapshot of how the Samadhi Community Outreach Center has impacted my life. Since April of 2019, Samadhi has been the steadfast foundation that my sobriety is built on. Unlike any other recovery group, or unlike any other treatment facility, I've learned how to practice mindfulness and, was provided training on mindfulness-based addiction recovery. Samadhi provided me not only much needed emotional support, but also a space to have visits with my daughter who was removed from my care in 2018. And it had been well over a year since I had any kind of home-like setting or privacy to even hold my daughter or rock her to sleep. Samadhi also provided me space and support with all my first holidays together again with my daughter as mother and daughter. They provided me with a scholarship to take the SERPA training. For those who are not familiar with that, that's the Certified Recovery Peer Advocate training. And in this book, I have a list of 50 names, other people, other addicts, mothers just like me, whom I have coached in their recovery because Samadhi provided me with the support and an age-old skill set. It's easy to be fearful of something that we don't understand, but we're in the eye of an opioid epidemic, and moms just like me are surviving because of the practice of harm reduction. It needs to be the dawn of a new day because what we're currently doing is not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Irene Bedaker.
My name's Irene Beatty. I'm from Greene County. I'm a SERPA P of Samadhi. Samadhi provides me a lot of support during my days and weeks. Samadhi represents a community for everyone from addiction to homeless people. I myself have 19 years recovery from alcohol and opiates. Samadhi is harm reduction, mindfulness, trauma, and much more we provide for community and recoveries. Addiction is a very hard road for addict, and trauma is a major part of a person who is in addiction. Every day, Samadhi has community members and recoveries coming to us where we meet them where they are at. The SERPAs and SERPA Ps put long days and nights in with the community members and recoveries. Samadhi as a whole is working very close with the community members and recoveries by doing Narcan trainings, talking to them, going to courts, DSS, detox, rehabs, doctors, emergency rooms, and much more. Samadhi is more than a resource community outreach center. Samadhi is a place where life matters, addiction matters, and recovery matters.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ryan Timbrook. Lauren Thompson.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Lauren Thompson. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. I am a SERPA, which is a recovery coach or peer advocate that works at Samadhi in Kingston. I also sit on the high-risk mitigation team for Ulster County, so I coordinate regularly with law enforcement. I work with Chad and oh my God, blanking his name because I'm a little nervous speaking, but we work with Oracle. We coordinate with the peer advocates from the Oracle team. We also work with organizations that are seeking to reverse gun violence in Ulster County as well as Dutchess County. And those are some of our advocates and people we work with as well. One of the things as I sat and had the opportunity to listen to everyone here is my thoughts ran that I think ultimately we all have, thank you, the same goals and the same ideas of what we want, which is what we want: a safe community. We want people to be well. We want people to be healthy and happy through incredibly unprecedented time. How do we go about that? And so we all have different ideas of how that happens. And so conflicts are going to arise. But one thing that's made me very proud about being not only an American, where we can sit and listen to each other and have conflict, and through that disagreement, find some community agreement, and one that works for everyone. That is something I have also seen in my time in working at Samadhi. I have never worked for an organization that I've been more proud of. We have been an organization that I started out to work. I wanted to work with 2 or 3 years ago. Thank you. And how it developed over the last 2 years through the pandemic, while the detox and mental health services closed at Health Alliance, and there were no places for these people to go, Samadhi became the place. And I was, I've been nothing but proud to actually be a part of it, and proud to be a part of the team. And I just want you to know that no matter whether you disagree or
30
agree with
seconds.
us, thank you. We do seek to create bridges and are open to discourse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Karen Keefe.
I'm a homeowner on Spring
We
Street. Since '97, I lived in Kingston since sometime in the '80s. I grew up in Saugerties. I'm retired, but my work, and when I worked, included working at the Battered Women's Shelter for several years, working in the Crime Victims Assistance Program for several years, working at Kingston High School for several years, and a total of 23 years working for the mental health department in intensive alcohol and drug treatment. One of the things I wanted to say to the people that were talking about their experience of the people that go to Samadhi is, why didn't you call the cops? Seems like what I would do if that was what was happening in my neighborhood. I basically came, I didn't even know Samadhi was on the dais, or whatever you call it today. But I came because I wanted to ask a question, and I found out that I could ask a question, but I couldn't get it answered. So I thought that was a little odd. But the question was, what things that have happened in the community? I'm very well aware of the things that have happened in the community, both the gun violence and the tragic overdosing. But what things that have happened in this community do you think would have been stopped or resolved by having this vehicle? It's an armored car. It came from Homeland Security. Doesn't that tell you something? And I agree with the people that have talked about, I've been happy about what seemed like, to me, the attempts of the mayor and the police department to make things better than they've been in the past. But
30 seconds.
But so I don't understand why I can't get my question answered. And thanks, Chief, for, I was one of the first people in the room. I don't know how I got to the end of the list, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Francis Jones.
Hello. Okay. My name is Frances Jones. I'm currently volunteering at Samadhi on 122 Clinton Avenue. I'm also in recovery. Let me paint a little picture of what things were like before I recovered. I had nowhere to go. I was bouncing. I grew up in New Paltz, actually, not Kingston, but this is where I landed because Samadhi was the only place that I could go that would accept me and help me, meet me where I was at, which when I first started going there, I was not ready to quit drugs, but they cared for me and cultivated this love and kindness and compassion for me that made me believe in myself again. I fully believe that, well, I don't know what would happen to me if I didn't have Samadhi. Having them gave me access to Narcan, which had saved my life on 4 different occasions, not in the building, but getting it from them and, having it in my backpack and also being able to Narcan others and save their lives. So I really not believe, but I know that Samadhi is saving lives. And I understand the issues. It's ugly. It's, it's not supposed to be pretty. It's addiction. It's homelessness. It's not pretty. And the real problem that I see is the stigma that we're facing. And I've never met more kind people than the people that attend Samadhi and need to get help. We're not dangerous people. That's all.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ruben Cash.
Hello, people. Okay. So I wrote something, I don't know what to say, that's like good, but nobody, out of breath, this is nervous. Sorry, I'm a low tugger. Thank you. Nobody can tell me one single cop's job has ever been beneficial for anything but cops, a system synonymous with white supremacy. The police are, I'm sorry, one of the remaining institutions of slavery. They used to be called slave catchers, hired by whites to track down, arrest, and kidnap escaped Black people and return them to enslavement. With that said, a tank or an armored police truck doesn't surprise me. It'll just make our reality a little worse. The police and every other faction of so-called security, AKA the feds worldwide, are detrimental to everything. I wish them all a quick abolishment. And I didn't know that this was a topic on today, but everyone speaking out opposed to Samadhi, it only, what's the word? Only signifies to me how much more institutions like that need funding. And like America has a fuck ton, so I'm sorry, has a lot of money, and New York has a lot of money, and everything would be better. Every dime would be better spent off the police, away from the police. Sorry. So I don't know. That's it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Pat Pelicano.
Hello and thank you. My name is Pat Pelicano. I live at 43 St. James Street. God, it's almost so much that I want to say. It's sort of incomprehensible. how after 15 months of us being out in the street protesting police violence, that you think it's a good idea to get this free Bearcat Lenco armored SWAT vehicle. We know it's not a tank. We're calling it a tank because it has the same effect on the vulnerable community as a tank. We know it's not a tank. It's not a Sherman tank. It doesn't have that. But Chief Tinty did, make it clear that it doesn't have portholes to shoot us. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, so it's just so curious how, what is it, a week or two ago that everyone voted no on the tank because we're going to still call it a tank because it still has the same effect. And I've heard word that maybe a lot of your opinions have changed in over a week. Meanwhile, what has changed over the last 15 months for the community of Kingston? People are still being hurt by gun violence. Like people are still not having adequate services for drug addiction. As I did not know samadhi was on the table tonight, but clearly all of these services, all these issues show that there's not enough funding for these essential services. Will the Bearcat Lenco armored vehicle solve the root problems of gun violence? Probably not. Will the Lenco Bearcat solve the problems of drug addiction and selling drugs? Why do people sell drugs? Because they're desperate, or they're hungry. They don't have services. People hang out at samadhi because they can. And there's a community there. And I honestly don't know the details of that scenario, but let's see, what else? The reason we're loud and upset, the reason we want to bring signs in, the reason we want to, drum in here and interrupt you is because we feel like we haven't been heard for 15 months. And that's only just like us now. Like this problem has occurred for vulnerable communities, Black, brown, poor, it doesn't matter, for all of Kingston's history. And all the history of cities in the United States. There's just not enough funding for these services.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Let's see. That's the reason we're loud, falling on deaf ears. Tank won't stop violence. And it's like, even to sympathize, I want to sympathize and empathize with everyone. We all want safety, as someone else had said. It's like our common denominator
10
is
seconds.
we want to live in a safe place. A tank doesn't do that. Only funding essential services does.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Ted Archswager. Ted Archswager.
Thank you. I'll keep this brief. My name is Ted Archwalger. I live on Crown Street in the 5th Ward. So it's been made clear that the phrase tank is just a chance to get the message across. We know what this vehicle is. So I'm just going to read a quote from Police Lieutenant Willie Williams, the president of the Black Police Association of Philadelphia. He says, about these armored vehicles, which were brought to police departments in the wake of 9/11 to combat terrorism. Lieutenant Williams says, it can escalate a situation because people, especially the communities of color, feel like we're being besieged from all the time anyway. And now you have this military vehicle, it's the mentality. Armored vehicles send the wrong message. Making people feel invaded rather than protected. So it is definitely a perception problem. People don't feel safe or protected with this. And in the last meeting, it was addressed that all the protocols for things like safety and rescue, those are already in place in Kingston and Ulster County and successful. So what would this be used for? Well, we have perceptions, but there's also data. And in 2015, the ACLU of Massachusetts sued to have the records released of what these vehicles are used for. The war on drugs is their primary use, busting down doors. And like other people have mentioned, these vehicles are essentially armored fortresses with a roof and a hatch that serves as a gun turret and other holes for shooting, and a battering ram attachment for knocking down doors. We don't want this. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Beetle Bailey.
I'm Beetle Bailey, Washington Avenue, Ward 3. So be human, vote no. It's really that simple. The first tank kind of tanked. Now some folks want to get a second tank, a rescue vehicle. They're calling a handful of poop Shinola, and that doesn't make it so. Like Pat said, it will have the effect of the tank on the community, whether that's what's intended or not. Calling an armored machine from the military a rescue vehicle or an ice cream truck won't make that so either. It will be a military vehicle operating on American soil in an American city around American people, possibly against. Will it take a Tiananmen-style demonstration complete with the bodies of protesters and dissidents turned into street pizza to change minds? Would that even change minds? Or is the cruelty the point? Is sowing deeper and wider division the point? Is starting a war of state-sanctioned terrorism that includes literal war machines rolling down our streets, intimidating communities of color and less affluent communities the point? Is the potential for human rights violations that have put dictators in the international court the point? Is setting the precedent for waging war on American streets with actual military machines the point? Because once the rescue tank / ice cream truck / whatever is rolling, Kingston will be able to get spy drones and attack helicopters and ICBMs and submarines and orbital satellites, or whatever just rolls and can carry a minigun, because that's what it'll come to. The slope is that slippery. But maybe Kingston could have an armored vehicles race with Teaneck, New Jersey. First town to make the nightly news for pancaking a black or brown child with a tank or using a minigun as crowd control against poor folk or protesters loses its soul and loses its democracy and at being a decent human being. So start your engine before this one ceases from disuse too, I guess, because what about Chicago? And what about Columbine? Or send resources to social, education, and health programs and to groups who can do more than terrorize,
30
detain,
seconds.
maim, and kill. Be a human being and vote no on the free-to-own rescue tank. Let it rust where it sits. Focus on really rescuing this community. All of it, for the sake of everyone who lives here.
10
Vote
seconds.
no, be human. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Tarek Cruff. Tarek Cruff. It looks like Tarak Kruff.
No, next speaker, please.
David Kabopkin.
Good evening. I'll be brief. My name is David Koropkin. Here is what I see tonight. All of the folks who spoke about wanting the tank spoke first. So we all sat here, we listened, and we heard everyone out. Now I see that many are gone, and they won't get to sit and listen as I will to all of these beautiful folks trying to keep Kingston livable. I hear arguing over semantics. Is it a tank? Doesn't have a cannon, doesn't have a gun attached. You know, the officers have weapons, they'll be driving in them. I'm not a military expert. I looked at the specs. It looks like a tank to me. Does this city of Kingston, this beautiful city that I've seen in the news over and over for the past year, for lots of reasons, people are coming in here. There is a war here. I think it's a gentrification, an over-policing war. Is that what the leadership of this city wants the city to be seen as locally, statewide, and well beyond that? So I agree, fund essential services. I also see about 20 cops standing around tonight. Doesn't seem so essential to me. I'm not getting paid. I thank you all for being here, but I see a lot of folks out left. I'm spending a lot more time in Kingston. I'm going to be hanging out with them, joining them, doing what I can to help them fight and organize, to make Kingston beautiful and a place that I want to be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mary Newbauer.
Hi, I'm Mary Newbauer and I live at 36 Alcazar Avenue in Kingston, up by Forsyth Park. I was born and raised here, and I've seen such a dramatic change in this community in the last few years. It's sickening. I think not funding for this vehicle or the cameras would be doing the city a grave disservice. We need to bring Kingston back to the way it was years ago. You've been here for many, many years. You were born and raised here, right? You too, right? A lot of these faces I've known from school and my kids at school. It's so sad what's going on here. We need to take our city back. It's not a tank. It's not an ice cream truck. Okay, they're not going to parade it up and down the city streets to scare everyone. But if something happens in this area or outside of this area, we're going to need it. Don't take any more money from the police departments. They're struggling as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rashida Tyler.
Thank you. My name is Rashida Tyler. I'm a community activist and an organizer. I grew up in Kingston, as did my mother, and my grandmother came here during the 1930s to start a business. And I can tell you, because some of us may have forgot, public safety in Kingston has always been subjective. Public safety in Kingston has always been dependent upon what community you live in. Some people never had security. So when people talk about let's go back to the way things were, it wasn't so great for everyone. And I think that Tamir Rice's mother really would have appreciated the level of discernment that is now going into the process of telling a weapon from something that is harmless. But as many officers say, you only have a split second to make that decision. So many in our community will look at that tank and say, well, it looks like a tank, it moves like a tank, and in their eyes, it will be perceived as a tank. A tank is not a panacea. A tank will not resolve the drug crisis. A tank will not solve the housing crisis, feed the hungry, or clothe the masses. A tank will not stop climate change. A tank will not prevent crime. A tank will not enforce arbitrary and capricious no sign policies that pop up during a public meeting. A tank will not make our community feel more safe. A tank will not roll back time to a point when Kingston was white, majority white, which I think we're going to have to boil down to. This tank is a proxy for what is going on in our community, which is a change between a rising majority of young African-American, Latino, people who are ethnic, and a minority in Kingston that is threatened. That is what is happening. This is a proxy war, and let us not ever mince words about what it is. You cannot say that you want public safety and to fight against the things that actually make us safer, like addiction treatment programs like Samadhi, like affordable housing, like reallocating resources instead of going into law enforcement to go to prevent crime before they actually happen. I saw, and when I was in high school, I was in high school when Columbine occurred, and I saw the changes that happened all around us in school and across the US. And do you know what I wished for? It wasn't a tank. But it was for the mental health services and proper policies in school to stop
30
bullying
seconds.
and the gun violence and laws that would have stopped the gun violence and the purchase of the weapons that those people used to commit those crimes. Just because money is available does not mean that it's right to accept it. The cheap always comes out expensive. The time and money spent on this could be spent
10
actually
seconds.
correcting the internal policies that are causing the risk in our community. You cannot force peace at the barrel of a gun. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Jenna Benacasa.
Next speaker, please.
Lisa Royer.
Hi, thank you for hearing us out tonight. I'm going to respond to a couple of things. I'm here to ask you to vote no against the tank, and also here in support of samadhi. This tank is free, right? But I want to remind you from the last meeting, we let you know that free violence is still violence against our community. I think it's disgusting that some of our community members are using the gun violence that's happening in our community to push their agenda. My son has a bullet in his back right now from gun violence that's happened in this city. And I still believe in our children, and I still believe in us. I believe that we as a community need to prevent violence from happening before it happens and not pay police officers to come after it happens. And so we need to move some of the $11 million that the police department is struggling with, right? They have an $11 million budget and they're asking for more. They're asking for overtime to play basketball and football with our children, which we can do ourselves if they'd stop throwing our kids away. But the last thing that I want to remind you is there was another 11-year-old girl who was killed in our area. Her name was Monica Goods, and she was killed by our New York State police at exit 19, and no one's talking about it. That was done with a regular police car. Can you imagine what they can do with this kind of car and how much damage they can do to our community? All I'm gonna say next is like, say her name.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Cheryl Snyder.
Hi, good evening, members of the council and members of the community. And when I say community, I mean all the people of Kingston. I don't mean the white, rich, privileged people of Kingston. I don't mean the police department. I mean all of us. I've had a deep, long relationship with Kingston since 1978. I had an office at 721 Broadway for many years. I was there day and night. I love this city. I know this city. I also pay taxes to the Kingston School District for the last 23 years. When we say tank, it's a one-syllable word. We're not stupid. Don't insult us. Because to us, it's a tank. It's like automatic rifles. It's like all sorts of things that are used against us, not to protect us. The impact is not free. Because you look at budgets. This tank, this armored rescue vehicle will need to be insured, housed, there'll need to be massive training. People will have to go out on exercises with it. We had one for 40 years. And I really didn't hear an index, an itinerary of all the reasons that we needed this prior vehicle, that we should have a new one. Right now, at this moment, it is really bad to bring in an armored vehicle to our community. George Floyd was not just a problem in Minnesota. The whole reason we went through a re-envisioning and rebuilding the police is because white supremacy rules in policing, and it rules in how we see, different people see the community. Undesirables at Samadhi, they're our community. You know what? Those people explain stuff that sounds like Saturday night on the main street in New Paltz. Nothing is free. I want to talk as a, yes, as 1 minute? I can't see that well.
It's 1 minute.
Okay. I want to talk as a former census worker. I've worked over 11 census operations in Ulster County over 20 years. I knock on doors and try to get people to do their census because not everybody does. This year, when I did my assignments, I was all over the county, but there was a lot in Kingston because I live nearby, so they assign you as close as possible.
30 seconds.
People were not answering their doors. People are not coming out to vote because we had a stop and frisk operation in this town that ended up in Monica Good's death, ended up in intimidating people, and you all lost 10 years of federal funding and block grants. You lost a lot of money
10 seconds.
as a result. We don't want a tank. We don't want armored anything. We want money for schools. We want money for education. We want money for mental health. We want money for housing. Take care of that, and you don't need the police.
Next speaker, please.
Charity Burke.
Thank you. You can hear me? Okay. About the tank thing. I grew up in a military family. My father spent 14 years in the Air Force. He helped develop the drone program. Then he went to teach at West Point for over 20 years, and he just retired. So I grew up hearing about the military. So here's the thing about these armored vehicles, right? Around the time, like before 9/11, the military was figuring out that the future of warfare was going to be urban warfare. So these armored vehicles were developed by the military in order to have a way to invade foreign cities. They're absolutely aggressive, offensive vehicles. They are not rescue vehicles. They are ways to invade us. That is why and how they were developed. And then Bush rebranded them. Rebranding them does not change their basic function, okay? So that's one. And two, all right, we have known since the 70s that the more walls you put between someone, anyone, well, mostly they did these tests on white males. The further you put, all it takes is a wall to make it more likely for someone to hurt another person with no reward whatsoever. These walls, the armor, psychologically, it's just human nature will make it psychologically just easier to shoot at people, to hurt people, to distance yourself from the humanity of another human being. And that is not a good thing to have in any city, anywhere, at any time. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Ann Ames.
Good evening. I'm going to try to be quick. We have been talking about the tank / armored vehicle and what it means to people in the community, people of color. But there's another thing about the armored vehicle, and that is militarizing the police. That's a serious issue. There have been studies done. If anybody wants to see it, it's called Militarization and Police Violence, the case of the 1033 program. It's one of many. And what they have discovered is that the more militarized a police department gets, the murder rate spikes. That's documented because it is a culture of being a soldier, no longer a peacekeeper, because you have to be trained to use these supplies, and you have to be trained as a soldier to use these things. So there's no more peacekeeping. There is now the culture of, what do we have it? What do we call it? The war on drugs. There's a war that was going on in our community last year with the stop and frisk. It was all of a sudden, Midtown was seized. And now we find out that it's going on again. Now they're doing it on the third shift. So now we got a cop watch on the third shift because of what's happening. What I wanted to bring up too very quickly was Monica Goods. In case anybody don't realize it, on December 22nd, Monica Goods was driving with her sister, who was 12, Monica Goods was 11, her father, and his girlfriend. They were coming back, going down from Albany to Brooklyn or whatever. The car was pulled over for
30
speeding.
seconds.
When the car was pulled over for speeding, there was an argument because the cop wanted to search the car. State Trooper Christopher Baldner wanted to search the car for drugs. It was an argument. He went back to his car, came back, pepper sprayed the car.
10 seconds.
Tristan Goods took off. Why did he take off? Because 7 years prior, his brother was killed by a policeman. So he wanted to get out.
Thank you. Your time's up.
He left.
Thank you.
The car was rammed twice and Monica Goods died.
Thank you. Your time is up.
We don't need any more militarization.
Next speaker, please. Sam Goldberg.
Hi, that's fine, thank you. We're surrounded by police right now. I don't know about you, armed police in uniform with guns and badges brought here. I have no reason to, like, why would they be here other than to intimidate us? They're all over here. They're using their badge, their gun, their position in a political way to influence this. The secretary here, who shares a last name with the police chief, is very clearly wearing thin blue line accoutrement. Yeah, long racist history to that symbol. You may want to look it up. If it was an ice cream truck, I would still oppose it, because the problem is the institution of policing in this country. Because this is a country founded on genocide and racism that has had a system of racial oppression through its entire history. As someone mentioned earlier, policing in the United States developed out of slave catching. It also developed out of breaking unions. So it's very difficult to reform that because it's baked in. Heard things about it's not happening here. Just a few examples. Monica Goods is obviously the most pertinent one. In Albany, they destroyed a peaceful protest with riot cops, even though I had told them they would be allowed to be there. Police had riot shields, thin blue line on it. There was at least one officer that had a Proud Boys mask on. This is a white supremacist militia in the town in Orange County. On their police reform committee, they had members of the Oath Keepers, which is a white supremacist militia. The point I'm trying to make is that people do not trust the police. More and more people do not trust the police. You can't change that fact. This is a political problem for you, because every time you pull this shit and you try and do this stuff, you make more of us and you delegitimize yourselves, the government. You've got an issue here. So like, I don't know, deal with it. Don't, yeah, I wasn't super prepared.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let you all chant Monica Goods over and over again if you want to. Monica Goods! Monica Goods! Monica Goods!
10 seconds.
Oh, one more thing. Police Chief Tinty said they were just following orders earlier. I've heard that somewhere before, and maybe y'all should have a problem with him trying to pin the whole thing about not bringing signs in on you guys.
Time is up. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Kevin Kabasic.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kabasic. I'm a resident of Stone Ridge. I've spent a lot of time in the last year with the activist community here in Kingston. Sorry, I'm going to fumble with my phone for a sec. So I just wanted to make a really quick point, because there's been a lot of attention paid to whether it's a rescue vehicle or a tank or what. If you go to the manufacturer's website, it definitely is characterized as a rescue vehicle. That's absolutely true. However, crowd control also comes up on the manufacturer's website, and it's also marketed as an overseas military troop transport. There are configurations of this vehicle that are definitely configured for fire and medical rescue, absolutely. There are also configurations that are specifically for, and I'm quoting from the manufacturer's website, crowd control and civil disobedience, disturbance, beg your pardon. And everybody along this wall over here knows, after last year, how easily a peaceful protest gets characterized as a riot. So that's all I wanted to say. Yes, it's not technically a tank. Yes, it is a rescue vehicle, but let's not pretend that it's only ever a rescue vehicle. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Egidio Tinti.
Thank you. I'd like to.
Everybody had 3 minutes. He signed up. He has 3 minutes of time. It cannot be interrupted. Thank you.
So you can start the clock now. Thank you. So last night you heard from me. Tonight, I want to show you who will be in this vehicle. Deputy Chief Mike Bonds, Chief Kyle Berardi from the town of Ulster, Lieutenant JP Gramaya. We oversee the emergency services team represented by the Kingston Police, Kingston Fire, Town of Ulster Hose, and the Town of Ulster Police. My apologies. Right, you're standing right next to me. With that in mind, I'm going to ask Commander Zell to introduce each member of the team.
Sergeant Zell, I'm the ESU team commander. With me, I have Officer Mike Mills, Officer Aaron Fitzgerald, Ernie Vandenbark, Mike Miller, Detective Jason Charest, Ed Schubin, my team leader, Andy Safar, my other team leader, Eric Hansen, and Detective Holbert.
Excellent.
And Cheryl Benjamin, who's one of our negotiators for Town of Ulster. This is the team that responds to all critical incidents inside the city of Kingston and in the Town of Ulster. And this is the team that will deploy this vehicle under my command. And I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to hear and think about this vehicle. It's a great asset for our team. It's much needed. and the safety of our officers and their families.
Please silence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that in mind, that's the one component I wasn't able to address last night. I wanted you to look into the eyes of each individual member and know who will be using this vehicle. There is accountability in what they do and how it's deployed. I know there's been questions about policy. We've already agreed it's not about the money. The town of Ulster is the one that's putting up these funds. The city of Kingston has it through a grant. It's not about the use, the past use. We've had one for over 10 years. I will agree with some of the speakers that there has to be money put towards other social service developments. I understand that this is not going to help with mental illness. This is not going to help with the issues that we have to deal with every day on patrol. What this will do is help when it's needed in a crisis situation. So if you decide to say no, you're saying no to us as the leaders of each of our departments and to them as the representatives. Because at the end of the day, the saying is when the bell rings, these officers are
30
coming out.
seconds.
Not the people you're listening to. Not one other speaker took the microphone and will come out at 2 o'clock in the morning and leave their families behind to do their jobs. They're not doing it for the pay.
Silence, please.
They're not doing it for the pay. They're doing it because they live it. It's who they are.
10 seconds.
They will not respond. And I say they, the members of the public who speak against it are not affected by how it's deployed.
Thank you.
We
Time
are.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please silence. I need silence. I need silence. We only have 2 speakers left. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rachel Gans.
You can proceed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Gans, and I support many of the things that people have said, Beetle Bailey and Rashida Tyler and Eames and many others that I'm not saying, but I also wanted to, about the armored vehicle, AKA tank, that, and I'm not going to repeat the things that have already been said. One thing I do want to say is that over 20 years ago, when my child was young, we took in people with mental health issues and drug use issues into our home. At least one person came straight from jail and we stayed with us for at least a week. Some people stayed for a few months. It did have an impact in her life. She graduated at the top of Kingston High School in top 10, went on, got an engineering degree, works at the VA hospital in the Bronx, taking care of vets who often have mental health issues, drug use issues, and deal with housing insecurity and or are unhoused. That is where we need to put our money and our time and energy, because I also have written grants for local nonprofits. Grants are not free money. They have stipulations. You need to read the grant stipulations, what's included in there. And it doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover the training, the maintenance, whatnot. And we don't know what the town of Ulster deal has. It's not free money. It is where your priorities are. Every grant that I go after for the nonprofit, it's the priorities of the organization as to what we are dealing with. And as it was stated, people are dying from overdoses. Not all the people that stayed at my house survived. And that's where, you know this, that's where we need to put the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. This is our last speaker.
Qasim Muhammad.
In God we trust, one nation under God, indivisible. Father in heaven, listening to everything today, I thank you so much, first of all, for your love for every one of us. Thank you for the leaders. I thank you for all the police officers. We're all doing what we just know to do best. Thank you for all the community people that came out, those who left. Thank you so much for your love for every one of them. And whatever decisions are made that are going to decide where money goes where, I thank you for samadhi. Samadhi, honestly, to me personally, I suffered with addiction. And there are many addictions, but I personally did, and they're just doing what they know best. We're all putting our lives on the line, whether it's for the streets or whether it's for our families. I pray and beg you to please help us to have the right influence in our hearts to know where to put the money. It's a real serious situation right now. And it's not about who's louder or who's more silent, but it's really honestly just about you helping us. It said one nation under God, like we need you. Please, I'm not trying to talk too much because you know how I do, but please, I beg you, surround each and every influence, each and every person in here with your love, and allow them, when they go home to their families, to love their families more. Let that be the greatest influence that can be felt in here. Please, please save me from myself. I want to help people. Help me to help people. And I'm not trying to get out of context, but please, I beg you, all the leaders that are in front of me, the decision that they have to make it for them. And thank you. Amen.
I'm now closing the public speaking portion of the meeting. We're going back to business. We do ask that there is silence in the gallery as we continue our business. Unless I hear any objection from council members who need to stand up and stretch. All right, take 2 minutes. We're going to start in 1 minute, so if you could start heading back to your seats, council. Council members, if you could make your way back to your chairs. We're going to be starting soon. We just need Alderman Tollerman. We're now resuming our meeting. We're now entering, so we do need silence while we're doing our regular government proceedings. Thank you. We now enter into claims and communications. Hearing no discussion, they will be in the clerk's office. Can I get a motion to dispense with the second reading of the general bills and pay same? Motion by Tony Davis, second by Patrick O'Reilly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. We now enter into the report of committees, starting with resolution number 149, please.
Resolution 149 of 2021. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer from contingency in the amount of $500 to provide funding for dues to the O&W Rail Trail Coalition.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 150, please.
Resolution 150 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Parks and Recreation Department in the amount of $2,000 to cover the expense of 2 Music in the Parks events.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 151, please.
Resolution 151 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, determining the Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2 project as an unlisted action in the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker process pursuant to 6 NYCRR Part 617, and directing the Office of Grants Management to coordinate a review of the action.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 152, please.
Resolution 152 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Community Development Department in the amount of $3,500 to cover the expense of materials for its drop-in school support program at the Roundout Neighborhood Center.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 153, please.
Resolution 153 of 2021. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Community Development Department in the amount of $250 to cover the expense of advertising.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 154, please.
Resolution 154 of 2021, Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Civil Service Department to cover unallocated expenses due to the pandemic.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 155, please.
Resolution 155 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Police Department in the amount of $110,479.14 to cover the retirement payout and various training expenses.
On the question? Alderman Patrick O'Reilly.
I'd like to thank those officers for their service.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 156, please.
Resolution 156 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Health and Wellness Department in the amount of $60,000 to cover the expense of a New York State DEC pedestrian and bicycle master plan.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 157, please.
Resolution 157 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Health and Wellness Department in the amount of $149,357.05 for the New York State Department of Health Creating Healthy Schools and Communities Grant Project.
On the question? Alderman Patrick O'Reilly.
As you can see, we are spending $149,000 on creating healthy schools. Just like that to be noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the question? Hearing no one else, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 158, please.
Resolution 158 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the mayor to execute any and all related documents and to expend funds in the first instance for the creation of Healthy Schools and Communities Grant, RFA 18371, from the New York State Department of Health, Division of Chronic Disease Prevention.
On the question? Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be recusing myself from this vote due to the nature of my job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 7-1, with the one vote being the recusal by Alderwoman Hirsch. Moving to resolution 159, please.
Resolution 159 of 2021. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a transfer in the Police Department in the amount of $100,000 for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Tactical Team Grant Vehicle.
On the question? Alderwoman Rita Worthington and then Alderman Doug Coop.
Thank you, Madam President. Wow, it's been intense. So I've had an opportunity to, really pay attention to what the public has said on both sides of this issue. I think I can speak for all of us when we say that, of course, we want our city to be safe. We want our community to be safe. We want our people to be safe. We want our police officers to be safe. We want everyone to be safe. Now, it's my understanding that an in-use policy with limited restrictive measures on how this vehicle will be used and how this vehicle will not be used is in the process, or is in the City of Kingston, is in existence right now. It's my further understanding that this policy will go before the Police Commission for approval and then to the Laws and Rules for further review. So based on that, I would like to make a motion that this resolution be sent back to committee pending review, public comment, and approval.
Sorry, there's a motion on the floor to send this resolution back to committee. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion is denied. Do you want to give up the floor now or?
Sure.
Okay. Alderman Doug Coop.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I, like all my colleagues up front here, it's a very contentious issue, and I would like to thank all the speakers tonight. It was well thought out, but it's a very polarizing issue, as we obviously know. All of us have received, myself included, particularly even late to say all afternoon, many phone calls, many emails, petitions, et cetera, on both sides of the issue. I would say in my own case, it's probably close to 50-50. I've also talked to the chief of police, the deputy chief, the mayor, and the supervisor of the town of Ulster. I think the chief has gone out of his way to explain in great detail and with great patience all the many questions that have come from everyone on the council, whether on the finance committee or not on the finance committee. Where I come down on this, I am very, very concerned with the disturbing trends in public safety, not only in our city, our county, our state, our country, and similarly for the effects of climate change. This is an opportunity at no cost to the city to build in protection for some of these things that could happen. So therefore, I will be a yes vote on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the question? Alderman Tony Davis and then Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Thank you, Madam President.
Can you turn your mic on, Tony? Oh, just speak into it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, as Doug, I can reiterate what Alderman Doug Cooper said. I've received numerous calls, emails, and stops in the street, stops at my job in regard to this matter. At last month's Finance Committee meeting, and so I wanted to write this out because I wanted to make sure everybody's clear. Last month's finance meeting, my no vote on the city's purchase of an armored vehicle was based on the information, or should I say, the lack of information provided to the committee at that time. At the meeting, the committee heard from several speakers who were opposed to this purchase. Some of the comments made were, why does the police department need this new vehicle? 2, this would be an armed vehicle. 3, what would be the procedures for this use of this vehicle? 4, this vehicle is going to cost the city money. And 5, the city doesn't need this vehicle. Since that meeting, as I stated, the council receives additional information, data, as well as emails and phone calls on this request. I want to thank Chief Tenty, Deputy Chief Bonds for providing information, data, as well as the citizens for taking the time to participate in your local government on both sides. After reading and analyzing this information and data that I received, some facts that I learned are the vehicle will replace an existing decommissioned 1979 vehicle the city purchased in 2012. So we've had this vehicle for many years, or for several years, and no one's said anything about it. Why? Because most likely, most of the time it's never been used and nobody's seen it. It wasn't rolling down the streets. It wasn't bashing doors on an ongoing basis. This would be not an armed vehicle, but an armored vehicle. There would be no guns attached. I went down and took the time to look at the vehicle they have in the possession. I got in it, sat in it, toured it, took pictures of it, et cetera, et cetera. The procedures regarding the deployment of the vehicle will be included in the Kingston Police Department General Operations Manual. So it says, what were the procedures for? We were already told who would make those decisions and when it would be deployed. Wouldn't be deployed if the safety of the people is not in jeopardy. So it's not something that's going to go to a car crash or a fight in the middle, a fight between 2 pedestrians. This vehicle would not cost the city any money. It would be purchased with a free $100,000 grant. So it's not costing. And the other thing is, people said we could use this money we cannot use this $100,000 grant for anything that it was not designated for, which is the purchase of this vehicle. So, yep. Our city is not 5. Our city is not immune to violence, including gun violence. Since 2019, there have been 6 people killed by gunfire, 12 other people hit by non-fatal gunfire. And how many reports had there been in the last month of gunshots heard in the city? We can't keep on saying it will not happen in Kingston because it already has. So when we're talking about, and again, we have tragic deaths with people who died at the hands of law enforcement, and, Breonna Taylor, et cetera. And that has been said by the people who are opposed to this. But I would like to say, I don't see them with signs, et cetera, with the 6 people who were killed by gun violence. All right? We need this vehicle, and I'm going to go on to this. I would finish my comments with this statement. How many of you would ask a city firefighter? So we went back, people were talking about the history of racism, right? And the police treating up. I'm a history teacher. Also in that history, if you go back to the civil rights and stuff, guess who else was standing next to the city firefighters in many instances? Or police department. It was the firefighters out there with their hose, knocking people down, trying to tear their skin off, trying to control the crowd. So how many of you would ask a city firefighter to go into a potential hotspot, a fire, without protective gear and a fire truck to protect themselves and the citizens? So why should city law enforcement be actually going to a potential hotspot, an active or potential shooter scene without protective gear and an armored vehicle to protect themselves and the citizens?
The alderman has the floor. Thank you.
People talk about protecting them, and why we not talk about protesting gun violence, right? We're talking about defunding the police. Why are we not people out there trying to defunding gun violence, right? What can we do about the gun violence, right? It was also talked about a priority. A priority is if we don't, right? People are saying people feel safe in this community. A priority is if we don't have safety in this Kingston, people were going to start to leave or continue to leave this community. All right? So
Please, otherwise we will have to ask you to leave. The aldermen have the floor to discuss. Thank you.
people talk about that. For another example, and another speaker didn't get to it. We have fire extinguishers. Most people have fire extinguishers in their house. Hopefully we never use them. But when they expire, do we just say we're not going to get a new fire extinguisher? No, we go out and buy a new fire extinguishers just for the case. So in regard to this armored vehicle, we hope that we never have to use it. But in the case where we have to use it, if it's a mass shooting at the Kingston High School, where when the students go into school, nobody's checked to see what weapons might be coming in there. If it's a mass shooting at Deet Stadium during a sporting event, nobody's checked when they come into Deet Stadium. So we hope it never has to be used. But if it's those cases of the active shooting, we're gonna want this protective thing that we can just get to it right away to be able to protect not only the citizens in the city of Kingston and the surrounding community, but the police officers who have to be the ones who have to respond. The EMS, people are talking about whether EMS people, the ambulance people can just go into these things. No, they cannot. They are told that they had to stay out of the hot spots. I was a firefighter for 5 years. We didn't go into a hot spot. It was an active shooting. We stayed out on the perimeter until the law enforcement says that is okay to go in and do what we had to do. So this armored vehicle is going to be able to help that. Right? It's not going to be ramming down doors or anything like that. But if someone, one of your children or somebody you know is injured and shot and laying in the hallway of the school or out in the field of the school or Deet Stadium, we're going to need this armored vehicle for them to be able to protect them and get them to safety. Thank you. Therefore, as you can feel, I'm going to be a yes vote because our city can't predict what will happen or when it will happen. But by purchasing this vehicle, the city can be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Alderman Steve Shavit.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to keep this pretty brief. We've listened all night, on this subject about the vehicle. I appreciate everybody on this committee. I know, and I really trust in everybody's judgment here. I know that everybody has done their due diligence. Everybody's been doing homework. myself, this is on in your daily thoughts. I'm sure it is with everybody. You know, this is a big topic. For me, this comes down to a matter of perception. I mean, we're talking about a vehicle. We're not talking about a person. This person can't get up and defend themselves. The vehicle can only do what it's going to be instructed to do. So the perception of the vehicle is it going to be for the community or against the community? That seems to be the argument here. You know, this gives us an excellent opportunity to get a quality emergency vehicle at absolutely no cost. And yes, I do not believe that this should replace social programs, but this is not an either or situation. We can have both here. You know, there's no reason that if this vehicle comes in that we will not pursue social programs. The other thing, since our first meeting about this subject, I have to admit, I feel more comfortable with this since the police commission has stepped up and come forward to assist with the protocols for the use of this vehicle. So, you know, there's a lot here. Everybody's been very eloquent in presenting their arguments, you know, one side or another. As I said, I really respect, you know, both sides of this, but, you know, I think this is an excellent opportunity for Kingston to get an emergency vehicle here. So I will be voting yes for this tonight.
Thank you, Alderman Chabot. Anybody else?
Yes.
Alderwoman Rita Worthington.
Thank you, Madam President. So I just feel like I just need to respond to a couple of things that were said by our council members. A couple of times I've heard someone mention that when the gun violence was going on, there was no protest or no protesters came in to say no against gun violence. That is absolutely false. 100% false. I live in Ward 4, where that is considered a hot spot. I have watched time and time and time again of protesters marching down my street saying, stop the gun violence, stop the killing, stop the violence, period. When there have been shootings, there have been people that have stepped up in this community that have reached out their hands to help these victims. So I don't want to hear again that no one is stepping up to help. That is even not the point right now. All right. And so when I gave up the floor, I shouldn't have given up the floor, because I want to go on record saying that I will be a no vote on this. I think perception is real. I understand both sides' argument, but there is a divide in our community that you can't just toss that aside. There is a divide, and I believe that this is going to widen that divide. And so I'm very disappointed that we can't go back and discuss any in-use policy that will happen for this vehicle, because then we may come to a different conclusion. And so as far as judging people saying they're not doing this and they're not doing that, you know, that's not even the point right now. All right, we're government. We have to listen to what everyone says and not take it personally that, you know, somebody said something that is against what you believe. All right. And so, yeah, I'm directing my comment at my fellow council member. So stop that. But I'm a no on this resolution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. This free money, as everyone seems to be calling it, has been on the table for 2 years. And only now are our police department and the town of Ulster asking for us to fund this armored vehicle. Our mayor didn't come to us for this vehicle, and only in the last 30 days or less did we actually find out about it. I'm the daughter of a police officer. I do know what it feels like to wonder if your father is going to come home at night, and I empathize with everyone that spoke tonight. My vote would look much different if we didn't already have an armored vehicle sitting in Kingston that we have access to through the county sheriff's department. We've had to use that vehicle for the last 3 years while we haven't had a vehicle. We were told that we would lose our SWAT certification if we don't get this vehicle, and that is a misrepresentation. We cannot have public safety if we don't have transparency, and I don't believe that our police and the town of Ulster are being transparent with us, and how can our community feel safe? I will continue to be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Alderman Patrick O'Reilly.
Thank you, Council President. Perception. Let me tell you my perception. I've been a school teacher in the city of Kingston for 30 years, right? That's a long time teaching kids, 12-year-olds, right? Now these 12-year-olds are like babies, right? When you're 50 years old, they look like little babies, right? They're like little tiny children. They're nice. I'll tell you what, I'm responsible for 30 of those kids, right? 30 kids in my room, little 12-year-olds, precious, 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 precious children. We have these drills, right? Where we perceive that someone's outside the school and there's a danger outside the school. So we lock down the school, right? So no one can come inside the school, right? All right, so it's me and the 30 kids and there's a danger outside the school. I'm responsible for those 30 kids. All right, so now we have another drill. By the way, these drills are not fun. They're scary. We have another drill where there's someone inside the school or some danger, not someone, but some danger inside the school to the children and myself. So the drill goes, they come around, they knock on the door and they say, let me in. Let me in, let me in, let me in. Right? And you can't let them in. But guess who's standing on the other side of that door? Me. That's it. What do I got? Pencils and pens to fight this person off? Nothing. I have nothing to protect myself and these 30 precious students. How do I save them? How do I get them away from danger? You know what I'm thinking? You know what's going through my mind? And every teacher in the United States? What are we going to do? It's just us and our shirt. We don't have armor. We don't have guns. We have nothing. We have nothing. So what do I think? I got two choices, right? When that person comes through the door, I either fight that person off myself, which I would to my last dying day, or I drop these kids out the window, right? And let them run 300 yards across the field, possibly getting hurt or shot or killed. These are my choices. Now I have a new choice. There's going to be a vehicle that's going to come up that's armored, and I'm going to drop these kids into this vehicle and they're going to escape. So that's my perception as a school teacher for 30 years. So you can have your perceptions and you can think what you want, how bad your perception is, but this is my perception as a school teacher, okay?
The Alderman
That's not
has the
true.
floor.
You should be ashamed of yourself. That's my
Please,
perception.
silence. He has the floor.
So I want to see something to help the teachers, right? When something bad goes on in schools. You think nothing bad goes on in schools? Read the paper. It happens. It happens. Okay? It could happen here. It could happen here. All right? And I am happy that we're going to have something between myself and that danger, or the teachers and that danger. So perception is not what we should be looking at here. We should be looking at how to save people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing no more discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. If you could please raise your hands so I could see them when you cast your vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes 6-2. Thank you. Moving to resolution number 160, please.
Resolution 160 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, prohibiting the idling of light and medium duty vehicles for more than 10 minutes in the City of Kingston.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 161, please.
Resolution 161 of 2021, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, adding handicap parking on Gage Street.
Just ask if everybody could be a little more quiet as you exit. Thank you. On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 162, please.
Resolution 162 of 2021, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the city streets of the City of Kingston, New York, amending section 390-97, schedule 14, no parking or standing at any time.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 163, please.
Resolution 163 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing amending the city's fund balance policy.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 164, please.
Resolution 164 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the removal of the sum of $5,200 vacant building fees from the 2021 general tax bill for 26 Gill Street, SBL 56.36-11-5.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Yes, the halls are still very loud. If you could wait to chat until you're downstairs. Thank you. Moving to resolution number 165, please.
Resolution 165 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing Walter A. McDermott Company to perform a telephone audit.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 166, please.
Resolution 166 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the appointment of Matthew Branford to the Board of Assessment Review.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 167, please.
Resolution 167 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing approval of the consent order and judgment correcting and reducing the 2019 and 2020 assessment roll for SBL 56.91-4-29 MAC Real Estate Holdings LLC at 172 Wall Street.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 168, please.
Resolution 168 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the Common Council of the City of Kingston to declare itself lead agency under Seeker 6 NYCRR Part 617 for the wastewater treatment plant project.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 169, please.
Resolution 169 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing transfer to provide funding for the development of a comprehensive economic recovery plan for the city's American Rescue Plan Act allocation.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 170, please.
Resolution 170 of 2021, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the transfer of funds for the purchase of 29 cameras with broadband and a monitor and computer station.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, Alderman Patrick O'Reilly.
Cameras everywhere. Boy, this doesn't sound like a good idea. I know I don't want cameras looking at me all the time. I feel like it's a story come true that we read when we were kids about the scary future that's actually come to being. Cameras everywhere. 29 cameras throughout the city. I see there's one at the end of my street. And I don't like it. But the situation in our city is grave. We've heard the numbers. 6 people, 40 some odd gunshots, children being killed. Out of control. I'm so sad that it's come to this. This is a nightmare that we have to put cameras up at the end of our streets. And you know, is it going to work, or are they just going to move? I don't know what's going to happen. It's nothing any of us want. Who wants their license plate read as they go past, I don't know, anywhere? Who wants a camera on them? Every move, everything you do. Bad hair day, you know, it's just terrible. I hate to say I live during this time where we need to have cameras looking at us, watching us. It's terrible. Horrible. It's inhumane to be watched all the time. I think that's probably my biggest statement is it's not human to be what you should be free to dance or sing without anybody watching you. You should be free to skip down the sidewalk without somebody watching you. You should be free to do something ridiculous without somebody watching you. I'm so sad. And I hope everybody's sad about this. We got to get things under control. We got to have better communication amongst ourselves. We got to help people, you know, not to be in these situations. You know, even us as council people need to get along better, talk to each other more, be more friendly. It's a sad commentary on all of us. I'm sorry, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else on the question? Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not a big fan of the idea of cameras, but this is something that I have heard from the community for months, requesting that they be returned to working condition within our city. I think that it can help protect people and innocent people with information to help solve crimes. I hope that they work. I hope that we don't need them for long, but I will be a yes vote on these. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. We're now moving to the first reading. Yes, first reading of local law 3 with no vote this month.
Local Law 3 of 2021 of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the adoption of a new chapter entitled Community Choice Aggregation Energy Program.
Thank you. That concludes our communications for the evening. Before we close our council meeting, does anybody have anything that they would like to? Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to close the meeting in memory of someone, and this is maybe a first that I haven't led this with. He was born in Kingston and a lifetime resident of Kingston. This gentleman was not born in Kingston, doesn't live in Kingston, but I'm doing this out of respect for his son, Kevin Gilfether, who was the retired Parks and Recreation Superintendent. His dad just passed last week. But Jack, his father Jack, was a legend over in Red Hook. His list, his resume, I can't do it tonight. It would take too long. But suffice to say, he has been involved in politics. He's been a supervisor. He's been on a school board. He's been Little League president. While he's doing all this, he was an IBMer for I don't know how long, a long time. Prior to that, he served in the U.S. Army in Korea. And when he was in college, he was a reserve in the United States Marine Corps. I mean, this is a guy who has done so much for the community. It's unbelievable. And I just want to recognize him for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? Hearing nobody else, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Doug Coop, second by Michelle Hirsch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We hereby stand adjourned until the next regularly scheduled meeting on September 7th. Remembering our caucus is the same day at 6:30. Thank you all very much.